Well, again, good morning to everyone, especially if you came in a little later. Welcome. We're glad if you are visiting with us that you are here to celebrate this feast with us today. This is more formal than we normally are. We pulled out all the stops because Easter is the biggest celebration of the church year. And though the world outside may think Christmas is the biggest one, it's actually just the one with more commercial viability. But for Christians, Christmas is just the warm-up. Easter is the main event. Because the resurrection of Jesus is the basis of the Christian hope. It's the reality upon which everything in our faith is founded. And so as we come to this, the last in our series on the I am statements of Jesus this morning, this Lent, we have learned that Jesus is the only way. He is the door to the sheep, the light of the world, the bread of life, and the good shepherd. Today, we will see finally that he is our final hope. He is the resurrection and the life. But to find our way there, we need to come to two scenes, two stories from our gospel reading this morning. In those two scenes, we find two essential questions that are universal to almost all of humanity. Questions that philosophers and sages and scholars have tried to answer throughout the ages. The first being, where is God when we need him? And the second, like it, where is God when we cannot find him? Because to find the answers of these two questions this morning, we're going to have to look between two tombs. In John 11, the first of our scenes, we find the first tomb, the grave of Lazarus, the friend of Jesus. Gathered around are those mourning, the friends and neighbors of Martha and Mary, who came to comfort them after their brother had died. You see, Lazarus had been sick. How long he'd been sick, we don't know, but we know that at some point the sisters sent a messenger out to Jesus to call him back to Bethany. Now, this was a very dangerous request for them to give him, because the last time Jesus had been in this area, as the disciples reminded him, they had tried to stone him. And also the air was still heavy with the opposition from the religious leaders in Jerusalem, who were only a mere 2 miles up the road. So this was a life-threatening request they were asking of their friend Jesus. But at desperate times, dangerous requests are necessary. And though we don't know and understand the exact relationship that Jesus had with this family, we know that they loved him and he loved them. And so at this moment, they believed, and they sent out that request because they knew if anyone could turn it around, it was Jesus. If anyone could bring them the miracle they needed, it would be Jesus, as they sat there at the side of their brother. And as the hours ticked by slowly, there was no sign of him. The long nights and the desperate mornings, each moment grew heavier than the one before it. And as they waited and waited, hoping and hoping for that miracle, it did not come. It was too late. Lazarus had died. And 4 days later, standing at that tomb, Mary looks at Jesus, her friend, her teacher, her master, her rabbi. And through tears, she says the same words her sister Martha did only moments before. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, buried in that statement is the question that has plagued countless people who have stood at the deathbed and the grave of someone they love. It's the same one as those who've watched their loved ones fall sick, their friends fall sick. And as they've watched this disease or physical trauma carry out, they've asked this question again and again. When everything you've worked for goes up in smoke, be it this terrible accident, this intense economic hardship, many have asked, and many still do, where is God when I need him? And then we go to the second tomb. We're met with another scene of mourning with a different Mary, Mary Magdalene. Now, the other gospel writers tell us that she had come with two others to anoint Jesus' body in the tomb. They had been prohibited from doing this because it was the Passover. So they waited until the Passover had ended, and then they went to the tomb early that morning. But when she gets to that tomb, it's open, and the body of Jesus is gone. In panic, she runs to find Peter and John, and they investigate for themselves, and they believe what she said. He was gone. And the scriptures tell us that they went back home after that and left her there in the garden, where we find her standing by this tomb, weeping, mourning, just as Mary of Bethany had been not so long before, wondering if all of her hope and faith had been in vain, wondering if anything she had believed was real. And so she stoops down and looks into that tomb again. And as she does, she sees two men standing there. And she demands to know where they've taken the body of Jesus. Where had they gone with him? And then she turns around. Another man is standing behind her. And he asks her that same question that they did. He says, "Why are you crying?" And mingled with her tears is our second question. Where's God when we cannot find him? She had placed her faith and hope in Jesus and the message that he carried. She had believed in him and his kingdom to the very end, to the last breath. And as she watched him upon the cross, she was waiting for something to happen, waiting for a miracle. But the miracle never came. And she watched her hopes and her dreams die on a cross. And she helped lay him in the tomb, and the door was shut tight. And as it was, all of her hope, the hope of Israel, was sealed away in darkness. But now, as she comes to that tomb that morning, she doesn't even have a body to mourn over. And she says to this man standing there, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've put him, and I'll take him away." She wants closure. She wants to put all this behind her. She wants to honor her teacher, even though her hope is gone and she doesn't know if she'll ever find it again. Between these two tombs lies the hardest questions and the hardest truths humanity has had to grapple with. The reality of death, that it is real and it is indiscriminate. And sometimes those who are in the right, doing the right thing, still suffer injustice. Bad things happen to good people. And most importantly, our world is broken, and anyone can be pulled down by it. And in these kinds of situations, it may be easy to have our perception distorted as theirs was. We go into a fog where we can't see 3 feet in front of us. You're left alone with your thoughts, and those thoughts are not necessarily the best thoughts. And in that fog and distortion, we wish we could see the hand of providence moving, but we're unable to recognize the Lord moving for the cloud around us. But we are not left there. These questions are not left unanswered, hanging in the air, mocking us, tormenting us. They are given a final, decisive answer. First, at the tomb of Lazarus, Jesus wept with the mourners. He knew what was about to happen. He knew the power of his Father. He knew that Lazarus would walk again. But still, he wept with them. He acknowledged and saw their pain and suffering. He gave it a voice that it never had before. But he didn't leave them in that sorrow. He turned to that tomb and called Lazarus out. And that man got up and stumbled out of that grave. What's the answer to that first question? It's never too late for God to move. At the tomb in the garden on that first Easter morning, he did not rebuke or ridicule Mary's tears. He saw them, he acknowledged them, and he looked at her and her pain and her struggle, the questions in her mind, but he didn't leave her there. He called her out of darkness with just a word. He spoke her name into her darkness. Because he is the good shepherd whose sheep know his voice. And suddenly those blinders come off, and she could see who it was. The fog had been pierced by the light of hope. And she saw the truth that Jesus was everything he said he was. God was not far off and hiding, unable to be found. He was right there, standing in front of her. Not only had he mourned the reality of death at the tomb of Lazarus, but he went down to death and conquered it, and he walked out of his own tomb. And on that day, as he did that, this broken world began to heal. As he steps out in resurrection life. And the answer to that second question, where's God when we cannot find him, is that he is there even when we cannot see him. He is moving even when we cannot feel him. He is working even when we don't know it. Because between two tombs, we find the source of our hope. Between these two tombs, we find a reason to continue no matter what. Between two tombs, we find the answer to suffering and hardship. But it's not in our grief. It's not embodied, not in words, but it's in a person. Every trial and every pain loses its sting suddenly because this is not the end. Easter is not about telling a story that makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside once a year. It's about calling to mind the fact that because of what happened that day, we are not left helpless and weeping at the tomb of our broken world, at the tomb of our shattered dreams, at the tomb of our destroyed lives. We are seen, we are known, and we are not left behind. Because through him, as one writer said, everything sad is becoming untrue. Jesus began a new world that day, and he invites us to join him there. He invites us to announce to the news, as Mary did to the disciples, but we announce it to all the world, that sin has lost its power and death has no hold on him, and his people are not left without hope. No matter how dark this world may seem at times, no matter how deep the sorrow may go, there is hope, and it is waiting for you between those two tombs. Do you have that hope this morning? Have you ever put your faith in the one who conquered death? Are you tired of being weighed down by brokenness? Are you lost in the fog and you're looking for the light? Put your trust in Jesus. He is the one who bore our sins away. He is the one who gave us new life, and he offers it to you freely here and now. The life that carries on into eternity with him, beyond the darkness, beyond the trial, beyond the struggle of this world. Come to him and take of his life freely. He offers it with open arms. Do you who have believed, perhaps, have that hope this Easter morning? Are you maybe at a tomb of your own? Are your friends or family at a tomb of their own, wondering if it's too late, unable to see God in your situation, in their situation? Hope is available for you, because just beyond the fog of sorrow, he is there. And he is waiting to take you into a new day. The hope of Easter is not in an answer to our questions. It's not in an intellectual exercise, but it's in Jesus Christ, who died and rose again, the one who holds our hope as he stands there between two tombs. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.